This is an introduction to functions. In this section, we are going to define a function, identify the domain and range of a function, and determine if a relation is a function. In the physical world, many quantities are related to each other. For example, the cost of mailing a package is related to the weight of the package. The distance it takes a car to brake is related to the speed of a car. And the amount of a paycheck for many workers is related to the number of hours worked. In math, we express relationships as a set of ordered pairs. So a relation is any set of ordered pairs. The set consisting of the first components of each ordered pair is called the domain of the relation. And the set consisting of the second components of each ordered pair is called the range. There are four ways to represent relations. We can represent them with a list of ordered pairs. We can represent them using a formula. Sometimes we might make a graph. And a final way we can represent relations is with a picture called a mapping. And you'll see an example of this later in the video. So for example, suppose a worker gets paid $10 an hour and works a maximum of 5 hours per week. This set of ordered pairs, 0, 0, 110, 220, 330, 440, and 550, would represent the relationship between the number of hours worked and the amount of the paycheck. Let's state the domain and range of this relation. So remember, the domain is a set of the first components. So if I look at these ordered pairs, the first components are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So the domain would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And often we write this as a set, which just means we're going to put these little brackety things around it. Now remember, the range is a set of second components. So if we look at these ordered pairs, the second components are 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. So we would write that the range was 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. And again, we often write them in brackets. So the domain, the first set component in the set of ordered pairs, and the range, the second component in the set of ordered pairs. So now let's talk about functions. So what is a function? A function is a relation in which each possible input value leads to exactly one output value. You can think of it like a function being a machine in which each input produces one output. For example, in our previous salary example, we would put in the number of hours worked. And we would take that number and we would multiply it by 10 because the person got $10 an hour. And then as a result, we would get out the salary. The input value, usually called an x, is also called the independent variable. And the output variable, usually called y, is called the dependent variable. So let's look at how we can determine if a relation is a function. So the question we're going to ask ourselves is, does every input have exactly one output? And if the answer to that question is yes, then the relation is a function. And if the answer to that question is no, then the relation is not a function. So this picture we have here, this is what's called a mapping. So it literally shows which input variable is associated with which output variable using arrows. So let's take a look at the first example. In our first example, P is associated with M, Q is associated with N, R is associated with N. Notice that every input is only associated with one output. Now, it may bother you that both Q and R are associated with the same output, but does Q go only to one place? Yes. Does R go only to one place? Yes. Each input has exactly one output, so the answer to this one is yes. This first one is an example of a function. Let's take a look at the second one. P is associated with X, Q is associated with Y, R is associated with Z. In this example, we can see that every input is associated with only one output. And so yes, this one is also a function. Now let's take a look at this third picture. In this picture, P is associated with X, Q is associated with Y, but notice Q is also associated with Z. Q is not associated with only one output, it's associated with more than one output. And so this is not a function. I've included a link in case you'd like to watch another video which would explain more about functions in determining if relation is a function.